From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin Energy.
The vitamins.
The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Azan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, no throws yet from Tommy Castellanos, just words, but a mindset that sounds conducive for the reboot. Will the Florida State team slogan be a Ghetto Boys song this year? We discuss. And recapping Media Day for baseball, the Noles in good hands. All hail Link Jarrett. Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. VitaminEnergy.com, the world's first and only clinically proven energy shot. VitaminEnergy.com. Shake it and take it. I think today is going to be the day I'll get out to the post office and mail out those boxes to our guys, Dayton Knoll, I think Saint 99. Those two guys sent me screenshots, Corey. They placed orders. One of the guys placed more product than the other, but nonetheless, free box of Vitamin Energy will come their way. I think when the season starts, spoiler alert, I think maybe at that point we'll bring the Warchant BOGO back, but we all need to pay our, I don't know. We got to wear the pain of 2 and 10 somehow, all of us. So.
Right.
But actually, you don't have to. It's a new year. Feel good about yourself. Help it out with Vitamin Energy. VitaminEnergy.com. Shake it, take it, sip the juice. Warchant.com, ultimate Seminole sports source. It was a busy Tuesday over on the site. Hope you remember. You got to read Corey giving a summary blow-by-blow of Thomas Castellanos, Luke Petitbon, as well as Squirrel White. We'll talk about that soon. We had Link Jarrett and the baseball team. We had Jamie Arnold, Alex Lodi, Max Williams. Summary of that. All over on the boards. Join the community. It's fun. You'll develop friendships that you won't want to lose. Warchant.com, ultimate Seminole sports source. Corey Clark, how are you, man?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. I hope you're doing well as well.
I appreciate
you had a good
that.
Tuesday, I hope.
Yeah, it was cool, man. It's like, look at me being a functioning member of this award-winning website, going and doing things. It was fun. And I'll tell you what, man, I'm going to yap about him for 30 minutes at the end of the show. But, man, give me Lincoln Roscoe Jarrett. I want to hang out with that guy all the time. I want Link to know how much I like him. I want him to be uncomfortable with that fact. That's the only way it'll make sense all in my head. That guy, I tell you what, that program's in such good hands. You feel so good about where they're at right now, where they can go even further once they do make it back to Omaha. But we'll talk about that towards the end of the show because football pays the bills, everybody. And it was a big day. We got to speak to some important people, namely the starting quarterback, Thomas Castellanos. Corey, and you wrote an instant sort of reaction story about, listen, right now we're not able to see the way that they're performing during Tour of Duty. We remain hopeful that we'll get to see them in the final one of the winter season, which has typically been the case. No reason to think it won't happen this time around. So without seeing him physically performing for this team, he has to be kind of the face and the voice. What'd you like from him at the podium on Tuesday, Corey?
Yeah, and again, I'll preface all this by saying they're just words. If he can't play, DJ came across as a nice enough good kid. And I say kid because I'm way older than him. I know he's a grown man, but still, he's a kid to me. Last year at this time, it's just that DJ didn't have the off-the-field question marks that I think Castellanos had. And I say question marks. It's not like he has a checkered past or anything. It's just that he left a team in the middle, or with a couple games left in the season after he was benched, and you wonder, okay, what kind of personality is that? Is he here as just a mercenary because it's a bigger school? They're going to give him a starting job. How much does he care about this place? How much does he care about this team? How much does he care about being a leader? And I thought that all those boxes were checked in a 15-minute press conference. But I thought he said all the right things. And one of the points I made in the column, the first point I made in the column is we can get to what he said in a second. It's what the veteran offensive lineman said about him that kind of perked my ears up a little bit. Luke Petitbon is, if you guys don't know, he's been at Wake Forest for 5 years. He's 23. I think he was at least a multi-year captain at Wake and has started for 3 years. And when he talked about Castellanos, look, if we just ask him, hey, what's your relationship with Castellanos? And he said, oh, yeah, he's a great guy. Good guy, love him, seems like a good teammate. I wouldn't have written about it. The fact that he said, almost unsolicited, other than what's your relationship with him, he's like, look, he Instagram DM'd me as soon as I went in the portal, said, come to Florida State. I said, all right, we'll see. And then when he committed, they immediately started texting. And then Castellanos reached out once he got to campus, once he got into town, to help help him with the move, help him acclimate, help him meet some of the teammates. It seems like I might be reading some into that. But the way Petitbon talked about it, Castellanos reached out when he knew he was coming into Tallahassee to help with the move. I don't know if he legitimately means helped him move, like picked out a dresser from the back of the truck. But I do think he reached out unsolicited to help out a new teammate move in and get acclimated, and he's a new guy. And I don't know, man. I just think that really intrigued me. I thought that was revelatory, that Thomas Castellanos is the type of guy that would reach out to one of his linemen, one of his new teammates who he has no real relationship with, and try to help him acclimate and, like, really seem to care about it, right? Because those are actions. Those aren't just words in front of cameras and microphones. Those were actions behind the scenes that he didn't know we'd ever find out about. I doubt he DM'd him. It's like, hey, man, when you get on the podium today, remind them that I helped you move. That's not what Castellanos just did it to be a good teammate. I think that says something about the kid. Not as much as if he can help the team score touchdowns, but I think that was really encouraging to hear.
Before we go any further, correction, we need to call him Tommy Castellanos.
Sorry, I keep calling him Thomas.
No,
Sorry, Tommy.
So did I, Tommy. It just feels like way too personal. But we'll get there, Tommy. We'll be talking to you all the time, hopefully, after you win ball game after ball game after ball game. Again, I think one of the things that I found interesting, too, is, when I asked him about, kind of the timing of his decision to leave Chestnut Hill and come down here to Florida State. And, can you kind of walk us through that? He talked about things didn't go my way or didn't go the way I wanted to. But he said a lot of things out there about me are not true. But then when he was asked later on about Bill O'Brien, like he had a good praise. He could have deflected. It could have been an awkward moment. He could have tipped his hand about something that he didn't like about Bill O'Brien. But, listen, Bill O'Brien's the one that gave a quote to Andrea Kramer, who then shared it on as a panelist on a show on CBS Sports Network about Thomas, or Tommy not being, a BC man or whatever you want to say. That can't be fun to read and know that's floating out there about you. And he could have said something kind of, smart alecky, but he chose not to. And I think he's just so excited, Corey, for this opportunity. I mean,
yes.
He wanted to be at Florida State when he was 17 or 18 years old coming out of high school, right? I don't want to say begrudgingly, but he went to UCF because Gus Malzahn gave him the opportunity to play quarterback. He had John Rice Plumlee. It's hard to play in front of a guy that's got some better skill set than you possibly. So he kind of bets on himself, goes to Chestnut Hill, plays for Jeff Hafley, has a really strong 2023, brand new coaching staff, which he also, we can maybe talk about this a little bit later. It wasn't like handcuffs weren't put on him in the offense. He said that he felt more comfortable as a passer and didn't feel the need to run around. So he played kind of in a new offense, embraced that. And, after 8 or 9 games, just the future for him no longer was there. And then this opportunity opened up. So who can kind of blame him for wanting to make sure he was out ahead of it and well positioned to get his best foot forward once he did arrive here. So I just think like the confluence of all that, wanting to be here for so long, finally getting that opportunity. Gus is here. Mike is here. Mike now believes in him. Gus obviously believed in him. And then his cousin Devontae Freeman went here too. So he just wants to carry the tradition. So there's so many dots that you can kind of connect after Tuesday, I feel like, that makes you feel like you feel confident about what, I don't know, I'm trying to think the proper way to say this, Corey, but just you feel comfortable that he's all in to do everything he can to be a good teammate and help this team win football games in 2025.
Well, and I know people are going to say, who cares if he's a good teammate if he can't play? But we know he can play. We know he's not an NFL draft pick, certainly not the first couple day NFL draft pick by any stretch. He's barely 6 foot. He's not 6 foot. So he's not going to be a high draft pick.
Taller than I thought, though. Really had to adjust my camera for Squirrel White, not as much for Tommy.
Okay, that's good to hear. People want to know that. We talked about on headlines. I told Ira he should stand up like the president's walking in. When Castellanos, he's like, we don't stand up when people walk in. Well, stand up. It's the starting quarterback. Show him some deference. You know what? I think when I was watching that press conference and transcribing as we went, obviously – none of it matters if he can't play on Saturday. We do think he can play it. We know he can play on Saturday. We wondered about some other stuff. But he did talk about the Boston College thing. I thought he handled that question well. Said unfortunately it didn't work out for him, and there were some things said that weren't true, or things out there that weren't not all of them were true. But I'm just focused on Florida State. I'm really happy to be here. I'm a Seminole. He kept saying how excited he was, which was good to hear. But I think what's interesting about him, and it kind of crystallized as you're listening to him talk, is that, man, he wants to prove everybody wrong. Like, he talked about how the 2023 and 2024 games certainly proved that he could have been and should have been a quarterback at Florida State before having to go the UCF Boston College route. Like, that was a chip on his shoulder. He said as much. He literally said, I had a chip on my shoulder for those games because they didn't recruit me as a quarterback out of high school. And then he goes and puts up 400 yards on the 23 defense, and then wins the game in 24 in Doak. So he certainly proved he was good enough. But also, it's like, not only does he get to has he proven himself to Norvell and continue to prove himself to Norvell, he gets to prove himself to Gus Malzahn because, yes, Gus believed enough to recruit him. Well, he didn't believe enough to play him. Now he wants to play him. Yeah. And I know he had Plumlee for one of those years, but he didn't have him for the second year. So it's like he's kind of bet on himself, like you said, and he's proven people wrong, and now he gets to continue to prove people wrong. He has that it's the motivation that can't come from just wanting to be great. It's a motivation that comes from wanting to be great, and there's always that extra fuel that can come when people doubt you. And, buddy, he has a ton of doubters. He has a ton of doubters listening to this show right now. I think that's good for him. I think that's good for this team. This is not a guy that has arrived. This is not a guy that thinks this is a one-year stop on his way to NFL riches. This is a guy that wants to prove he's one of the best players in the country. Now, that might seem far-fetched. He probably isn't. But by God, he believes in himself enough, and he's proven himself right multiple times. He proved that he should have been the UCF starter this past year. He proved he should have been Florida State starter this past year. He's going to now want to prove he should be Boston College's starter. He's got that fire that comes from a coach just basically saying, benching him. Well, now he's got more fire. He hasn't arrived, and I like that. I like what I heard from the leadership standpoint, that he's reaching out to teammates. I really like the fact that he has multiple chips on his shoulder. I just think that's you can reach a little higher potential-wise when you've got that extra motivation.
My guy got more chips than NVIDIA. That's a Wall Street inside joke, everybody. Shout out.
Okay.
Hopefully you bought the dip, everybody. Corey, you mentioned DJ earlier, and I was thinking about it as you were talking, listening with one ear, thinking with the other, what have you. So what do we think is the...
You think with an ear? Which ear do you think with, the left or the right?
Definitely the right one.
Yeah, that's fair. Smart.
Definitely the right one. Like, what's the difference between these two guys in terms of, the want to? Because, DJ had kind of been left. I don't want to say he was left for dead. I mean, Oregon State believed in him, so maybe that is one of the differences. But, like, DJ wanted to come to Florida State so badly that he waited it out and for Cam Ward to make his decision, kind of knowing he was the backup choice. But he wanted to come to Florida State so badly, I think mainly because of the belief that Mike Norvell had like some sort of foolproof system in place with the way that he used the portal, and let me get some of that dust sprinkled on me, and let me get 1 year to show everybody I can play in a pro-style offense and I can chase my dreams. Whereas it feels like, Castellanos might be looking for some semblance of redemption, but I think it's more about, there's a true level of excitement I think he's going to have for wearing like that helmet, that jersey. Yeah. Sounds a little bit cheesy, but I just think there's something more about that driving you, and maybe not so much arriving, but knowing that this is what you wanted. This is what you wanted to sign up for 4 years ago. Now you finally have it, and you have to take advantage of it because this is the only year you have. Is that some of the differences between DJ and Thomas in terms of Tommy, for wanting to be at Florida State?
Yeah, I think the 1-2 is different. I think, look, DJ was a superstar recruit coming out of high school. I think he was the number one quarterback in the country, or top 2 quarterback. He was a 5-star. Could have gone anywhere in the country. Really kind of probably could have had his pick off the Oregon State years, too. Like, not after Clemson, but after Oregon State, he was good enough. I don't think Florida State was his only good offer. I think he had other good offers. And, look, I'm not heaping what happened in 2024 at the feet of DJ. That was a mistake, a misevaluation, considering the personnel that was around to bring him into that system. He also only played like 5 games. So the other 6 losses weren't on him. So yeah, I'm not trying to throw that kid under the bus. Last year was not his fault. He didn't help anything, but it wasn't his fault. I think Castellanos, it's a different journey, man. It's look, man, I'm not just saying this because they're athletic. It's a Jordan Travis type journey. Jordan Travis would have loved to have been recruited by Florida State. Florida State wanted no part of him. So he goes to Louisville. Then he comes to Florida State, and the coach at the time doesn't want him. You know what I mean? Willie Taggart didn't even know he was on the team, I don't feel like. His first play ever was the week after Willie Taggart was fired. I don't think that's coincidental. He was left for dead. He thought about changing positions, and then he becomes a borderline All-American, certainly an all-conference quarterback. I think, and he wanted to prove people wrong. The doubters fueled him. I think there's a chance it could be the same thing with Castellanos because he didn't get recruited by any big schools out of high school. He had a nice couple years in the ACC, but it was at Boston College in front of 20,000 fans and nobody watching. I thought it was so telling, Aslan, when somebody asked Squirrel White about Tommy Castellanos, and he's like, yeah, I know about his game. I think I saw a clip. There was like a viral clip of him making some play on ESPN last year. It's like, yeah, man, he ain't well known. He's known in the ACC. The people in the SEC don't really know about this kid. He is not DJ U. He is not a big name. He got benched at the end of last year at Boston College. So he's still got so much to prove. I just like that. I just like that about him because I think he has proven he's good enough, especially if you get people around him. He's good enough to win games with. And he's a different kind of quarterback than DJU. And I think what's different is last year, because I was thinking about this a lot, about the portal quarterbacks. And I don't want to speak too highly of Castellanos because I'm sure I spoke highly of DJU. I think I was pretty steadfast in saying Cam Ward was better. But I kept saying DJU's good enough. He's good enough to win you games. Well, he wasn't. Again, he also got hurt. But DJU's greatest strength was downfield throwing. Downfield passing. That's what we knew his greatest strength was. It wasn't mobility. It wasn't, it was arm strength, but it was basically the ability to throw the ball downfield and make big plays. He wasn't fitting it in tight windows. He didn't, take over games necessarily. So his biggest strength could never be utilized this past year. Number one, they couldn't block it up. They couldn't run the ball, so play action was a joke, and they didn't have good receivers. It's kind of an elixir of horrible things for a pocket passer, play action, down the field quarterback. So his strengths were never utilized. Tommy Castellanos' strengths can be utilized anywhere. And this OC can use them because he's done it his whole career. That's what gets me excited about this kid, is that what he is very, very good at is something that I think will be exploited at Florida State. It will be utilized is probably the better word, not exploited. It'll be utilized at Florida State. And I just think that having that with the chip on his shoulder, with the mindset of trying to prove he's one of the best players in the conference, and you're right, man, like he gets to play where he thinks he belongs. He thought he knew he was good enough to be at Florida State, or he really thought he was when he was a senior in high school. And now he's proven to himself that he is. Yeah, they do need me. See, they made a mistake. They were idiots. They should have recruited me 2 years ago, which is awesome. Now he gets to go prove that Norvell was wrong the first time. Malzahn was wrong for not having a plan for him to play in 2023. But now they've come around and they're right. And I like the dynamic of this quarterback. I like how dynamic he is, but I also just like the dynamic of his journey. Again, not predicting 12-0 though.
Make your journey over to the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill during your lunch break, and you'll have a lunch special waiting for you for only $8.99. Comes with a side dish of your choice as well. CPTallybar.com, the website. Check it out.
Sausage bites, Aslan. I meant to bring this up on headlines, and I forgot when we were doing the registers read. I don't talk about them enough. They have Register sausage bites. Ooh. Had them this past weekend. I should order them every time I go in. They're just great. So that's a plug for Registers, number one. Go get your Registers, registersmeats.com. But more importantly, for Wake Up Warchant's purposes, when you're at Corner Pocket, and you need to be at Corner Pocket as much as possible, get you some sausage bites, man. They're really good. They do them really well. I
mean, Corey has spoken, everybody. What are you waiting for? Bingo night Thursday, 4 rounds, $250 in cash money up for grabs in each single round. Get involved. CPTallybar.com, the website, 2475 Appalachia Parkway, Corner Pocket, Bar and Grill. We back. Wake Up Warchant, Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it, take it. So Castellanos, the presumptive starter, Corey, and shout out to all these kids for being good teammates. I would like to think I'd be a good teammate if I knew somebody was coming in to take my job. But I don't know, man. 19-year-old Aslan might have been a little bit petty, but it sounds like Brock Glenn doesn't have a petty bone in his body.
Yeah, I talked about him, I think sometime in December, certainly after Castellanos committed, that I think it's a big deal that he's on the roster. Not a huge, I don't know how many wins it swings, if any. You hope probably none because you hope your starter stays healthy the whole season. But it's good to have a guy that has experience, that is mobile. He is athletic. He's athletic-ish. I shouldn't say ish. He's athletic. He's still on the roster and he's been around. So Castellanos talked about Brock Glenn. And I really do. I hope as upset as everybody is rightly with a 2-10 season, and Brock Glenn had plenty to do with it. The fact that he's taken Thomas Castellanos under his wing, so to speak. I know they're the same age, but I guess Castellanos is probably a year older, or at least a class older. That he's showing him the ropes, so to speak, and kind of showed him around Tallahassee and the program and the locker room, and has been a good teammate and helped him through some things, is what Castellanos was saying anyway. I think that's cool, man. I think that's really cool. I think that's a great culture builder. They are not in competition, but it's good that Brock Glenn stays here knowing he is not penciled in to be the number one starter. He's not really in competition, I don't think, to be the number one starter. Now, he could go wrestle it away and win it. That happens all the time. Warrick Dunn ended up basically starting in a national championship game when he was the 5th-string running back to start that season. So it can happen. Brock maybe takes a huge leap. I'm not comparing. I know I just did compare Brock Glenn to Warrick Dunn, but it was for a point, folks. But either way, I like that Brock Glenn. I think that just says something about Brock Glenn, that he's willing to do that. And I really do think it's not invaluable. That means that you can't put but it is valuable. I'm not going to say it's invaluable, Aslan. That's too high praise. But it is valuable to have a backup quarterback that's been around, that clearly isn't petty, that clearly does seemingly want the best for the program, and has some stuff to him. I mean, he's not great, but maybe he could be someday. He's certainly got some athletic ability. Maybe he'd be really good, or at least sort of good, in Gus's offense. And I just like the fact that that Castellanos pointed him out and said how much Brock Glenn had helped him adapt and adjust to his life in Tallahassee and as part of Florida State football.
How about that Luke Petitbon guy? He just wants to play football, I think. But he went up there. He wasn't Marshawn. He was engaging, I thought, with the answers. I mean, comes from an absolute football family. I can't tie this together because my brain's too small, but Richie Petitbon was coordinator for the Washington football team back in the day. I was actually their head coach for a second, but he was the defensive coordinator when Joe Gibbs was there and they were winning.
Who's that? Like his uncle or something? I'm
trying to here's what Wiki says. All right, so Richie Petitbon, he has a son, Richie Petitbon Jr.
Okay, that makes sense.
And Petitbon Jr.'s son, Carson Petitbon. So that it goes from Junior has a son named Carson. Carson has a brother named Richie III. And Carson's older brother, Luke, is an offensive lineman at Wake Forest.
I didn't follow. So he's in the family, though.
He is. He's on that.
Okay,
he's on that.
Good.
I was going to ask him about that, but maybe we'll get him another point in time or whatever. I asked him the question, so figured we should maybe bring it up. Just I liked his answer when I asked him about being a leader, because that was something that people were asking us last year about who's going to be the guy that's going to be a leader, fill the vacuum left behind from Verse, Jordan and Trey and everybody else. And I was like, they'll figure it out. There's some guys that like to chirp. They'll figure it out. And, kind of asked him about the importance of being a leader and whether or not he's been identified as being one of those guys, if he feels comfortable doing that. And his response, I think, is that's what a leader would kind of say, right?
Yeah, I don't think leadership can be faked and stuff like that. And I think as a new guy, the first thing you have to do is build trust if you want to be a leader. And I was captain at Wake Forest, and I was a leader at Wake Forest for a good amount of time, and that was in part because I built trust over such a long period of time. So, I mean, I'm not going to force anything, and that's not my position to do. I'm not going to sit here and try to force myself into a leadership role, because that's not how good leaders are born. So I think I'm just going to, do my part, try to be the best teammate I can possibly be, and if that means that's brings me into a leadership role, I'm more than happy to, take that on. But it's got to be natural, and I think that everyone knows that leadership has to come naturally.
I will say this, because it might sound like I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, because Castellanos basically adopted the leadership role, embraced it, really. Quarterback's different. Quarterback has to be a leader of some sort. He just has to be. That's the most important position in sports. You can't have some wallflower as your quarterback. You just can't. And I feel like he's a guy that believes in himself. He's also a very talkative, outgoing kid that I think will be a natural leader, but he knows it's important for a quarterback to be a leader and not just, a leader by just words only. I think his actions, as we talked about, the fact that he called or texted Petitbon immediately and asked how he could help, I just think those are leadership qualities. So quarterback is a whole different ballgame. Everybody, I love the answer. I mean, I love that kid. That is exactly I just feel like that's the exact personality this team needs, that this team is needed, and that position is needed. No nonsense. I'm here to work. I can be a leader if they need me to be a leader. I was a leader at Wake Forest because he was a captain. He was a captain for 2 years in a row. He knows what it means to be a leader, but he also knows that it's not something that you just jump into and say, hey, everybody follow me. He's the new guy around a bunch of, especially in that room, there's probably 5, 6, 7 guys that have been here for a while. They're not going to just follow him because he started for a few years at Wake. Like, he's got to go earn it. Nobody on the offense knows him. He hasn't played with any of these guys. But the fact that he has the self-awareness to know that is why he's a leader. I'm trying to think of there's a phrase or something about that. I can't remember what it is, but it's like the fact a good leader is somebody that knows you have to go earn being a leader. You don't just get to call yourself a leader, and that's exactly what he is. That's the impression I got anyway. I think that guy is going to add a lot, just personality wise, this season, because he's not going to take gruff from anyone. You know what I mean? He's not going to be a shrinking violet either, but he's also not going to just decide he's the big oak tree the first day of spring practice. He's going to go out and earn it because he knows that is important too. Yeah.
Fake tough guys will tell you they're tough, right? A real tough guy doesn't have to tell you that he's tough.
Real gangsters don't run fast.
Okay.
That's from it's a song I can't really quote a lot.
Is that Future? Is that Migos?
No, it's
Alan Jackson?
No, it's from the 90s. The Ghetto Boys.
All right, represent Houston, H-Town, stand
basically,
up.
He says real gangsters don't run because real gangsters don't run fast.
Nice.
Basically, they don't have to run from they're ahead of the game kind of thing. Like real gangsters. There's a lot of, and I really can't quote any of it because I listen to it all the time, but there's some different kind of language, folks. If you're don't go. What Ghetto Boys song this is? It's called "Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster," gangsta. But don't go Google it if you don't like, crass language.
Yeah, there you go. So I think that's kind of that crystallizes itself with the way that he's like, yeah, man, like I he did what he did at Wake Forest, and I'm sure he felt the importance of that captaincy because he had to earn it. So he's not going to try to come here and fake it and force it. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be a vacuum in every room, in every segment room. It feels like Castellanos is going to fill it. On the quarterback room side, Petitbon might be the guy that has the kind of the leg up in the offensive line room. I wrote it all down, Corey. So Richie Petitbon Sr., who was the DC for the Washington team back in the day, his son was Rich Jr., and then Rich Jr. is Luke's dad. So Rich Sr. is his grandpa. Okay. So the guy that was the Washington defensive coordinator, that's Grandpa Rich. Maybe we'll try to get him on the program. It's the off season.
Yeah, it is the off season. That's right. And also, if you have younger kids in the car, turn it down for the next 10 seconds. Okay. But real gangsters don't flex nuts because real gangsters know they got them.
There we go.
Right?
There we go.
I mean, has there ever been a truer line in any song ever than what the Ghetto Boys wrote in the early 90s? And again, I'm mixing up the language there because it's a little dicey. I deleted some words, but the sentiment is perfect, and I assume Petitbon loves that song and loves the Ghetto Boys.
Huh? That's why the song has been preserved by the Library of Congress, everybody, for its artistic expression.
Has it?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I hope not. I love that song. It's one of my workout mix, but I hope it's not in the Library of Congress.
Are we going with Petitbon or Petitbon?
I don't know. Probably Petitbon, right?
Okay. Yeah, they're from New Orleans, so
it could be Richie Petitbon. That's a tough one. That's Petitbon. Come on. But it might be. I can't remember because I remember his dad as a coach. I just don't remember how they pronounced it. I guess we got to get. We know Squirrel's name, where he got that.
Yeah. And
we know it's Tommy. Now we got to get to the bottom of Petitbon versus Petitbon.
I was going to ask Squirrel, when you're getting recruited by a Gus Malls on offense, like what kind of goes through your head? But I feel like he kind of got asked a roundabout question and seemed to, obviously he's at Florida State enrolled, so he liked what he's seen from whatever plan they have for him. Confident young guy, but soft-spoken. What was your takeaways from Squirrel White, who I guess said, when I get the ball in my hands, I do special things?
Yeah, I like that. That was about all you could take from it. It's funny. I feel like I would love to talk to some of the new players about media policies, because I don't know how much the Tennessee players talked. You know what I mean? Like I can't imagine Squirrel White every week was going into a setting like that, where it's, what is it? Was there 15 of you in there? A bunch of cameras pointed at him. It's a whole new world in Tallahassee, which we all love. Seemed a little nervous, but also might have just seemed like he didn't care, which is fine too. I'm all about that as well. Just get it over with, get done, and go on with your day. I do like the confidence that he has in himself. The fact that he says, I got the ball in my hand, I'm special. I'm special with the ball in my hand. I can do anything. That was really nice. That's what you want to hear, and that's what you expect and hope to see in September. We'll see if it's true. He's proven he's good, right? He hasn't proven he's great. He hasn't proven he's Keon Coleman. He's proven he's a good college football receiver. Tommy Castellanos has proven at times he can be a good college quarterback. And Deuce Robinson has proven he can be a good I forgot he played with Caleb Williams. That's kind of cool. That he can be a good passer. Like, these guys are good. It's good to know that they have good. Malik Benson was a hope. Name the other guys that came. Jalen Brown was absolutely a hope and a prayer. These guys are established good college football players. That's good to know.
Yeah, Squirrel White, watershed season for him was 2023, 67 catches, 803 yards.
Yeah, man. That's big time. I love that. And just big games, big environments, good teams, good defenses. Like, he's seen it all. It's good. They got a bunch of guys that have seen everything. That's cool. It's not a bad place to be coming off 2-10. And we talked about that on headlines, but like, imagine if Bowden somehow had gone 2-10 in like 1986. That's a wrap. You can't come back from it. You can, but it takes like 3 or 4 years to build from 2-10. Well, now, they could, again, as we talked about on headlines a lot about the schedule, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Clemson game on November 8th matters a lot. And last year, when November 8th came along, they were the laughingstock of the sport. 1 year later, they could be playing to keep their name alive for a potential playoff spot. I mean, they're probably not going to beat Clemson, but we'll see what they do to put themselves in position the first 2 months of the season. But it's cool that you have that option. That's the good side of the current climate, is you can flip it really quickly.
Did you have any updated thoughts on the schedule that Ira and Jeff might have put in your mind?
No, they talked about me and Jeff almost got. Well, it was an argument. It wasn't as heated.
Almost throwing blows.
No, because we were in the same room. He didn't. And he doesn't want any of this. You know that.
Smoke.
I know he outweighs me by a while, but I'm crazy quick. But just about, like he said, if they go 5-7 again, they would fire Norvell. And I pushed back on it, just saying it's easy for us to say it's not our money. And you're trying to sue to get out of a conference. You keep asking. You've refurbished a new stadium. You built a field house. You've done all this money with all the. Your fans have given you all this money, and now you're saying, because we made a mistake 2 years ago, give us more money. We need to buy this guy out. We need to spend $50 million for his buyout, and then obviously buy out all the assistant coaches. So that's another $15 million. So give us $65 million because instead, you had a couple bad breaks, and instead of going in 7-5, you went 5-7. The point being, I'm not arguing that even if he goes 6-6 or 7-5, that he should keep his job. It sucks that this is where the sport is. This is where, not more specifically, this is where Florida State fans are. That it's like they're the fan base for one of these power programs. They're the only one that feels like they have to look at the bank statement each month to see how much money the school has, if they can afford the next month's tuition or afford next month's rent. They've been put in a position because of the current climate, and then also building all these things that and you keep asking the same people for the money, and it's like, okay, now you're going to have to ask them to foot the bill on a $50 million to pay somebody $50 million to not coach. Why not just take that 40 of that $50 million and go buy an All-American team? That would be my counter to that. But more than anything, I am certainly not arguing that if they go 5-7 that guy should keep his job. I just think it hammers home the point that they need to be good this year, man. Not great. They don't have to be great. Be good. Avoid a disaster. Get bowl eligible at the very least, and then that can be the last time we ever have to utter that sentence. Please get bowl eligible. That should never be said at Florida State. But coming off 2-10, that's where you are. And then, so they talked a lot about the Alabama game and how important that is. Just for the optics.
Psyche,
yeah, the optics. The psyche's the better word. Like for the fan base and for the team. And again, I said, yes, it's true. You don't want to get blown out. You don't want to lose. You certainly don't want to get blown out. But the next 3 weeks set up for you to get your footing. You're going to win the next 2 games, and you got a bye week in the middle. So you can't push the Alabama, and it really doesn't impact your playoff hopes at all, honestly. And assuming the only way you're going to get there is to win the conference. But yes, it would be so good for this program because they're 2-11 in their last 13, and they've been blown out by Georgia. They were blown out by Notre Dame. They were blown out by Florida-ish. There was kind of blown out, not really blown out by Miami, but not all that competitive. Like they need against a premier program, a name program, they need to start off the season well. So that was kind of the gist of it.
Last segment, Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it and take it. Tuesday also marked Florida State Baseball Media Day. As we mentioned earlier in the show, Link Jarrett, head coach, as well as Jamie Arnold, projected All-American, projected first-round pick, projected top 5 pick, Alex Lodies, Max Williams. I guess off the jump, the headline is going to be the response Link had when kind of asked about starters that are in the mix behind Jamie and whether or not Cam Leiter is going to be one of those guys.
Yeah, Cam's got a significant rehab, so there's not even a discussion right now for that one.
It sounded like he was a good week or so away from being available in Omaha to now, however many months later this is, 7 months later, still not being on the mend fully. That takes some wind out of the sails, but Link had a lot of good things to say about other guys in the rotation, namely Joey Volino. I think he said he's the most consistent left-handed arm he's ever seen in the preseason. And this is what I love about Link, Corey, is that he does not say things lightly. I do feel I trust his evaluation, and I really trusted Meat's evaluation too, so take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But just the way he talked about a guy like Max Williams last year in the preseason, called him a thunderous left bat. Yeah, and it's like, well, hey, man, come on now, man. You're coming off the first season here. We don't go to Omaha for the first time ever, losing season, etc. He talked about James Tibbs being the most gifted hitter he's ever been around. James Tibbs goes out, I think gets drafted, first half of the first round. Max Williams ends up being like this revelation leadoff piece for you that did indeed have a thunderous bat. He just seems to have such a good feel for what he wants, what this team needs. And being able to evaluate these guys correctly. That it makes me feel really excited about that. And then he had a lot of good things to say about a lot of these newcomers, talking about Noah Sheffield's a guy that he mentioned, Jace Estes, who I think went to Wakulla Christian.
Jace Estes from Wakulla, from down the road, that joker hangs in there. And, Taylor Walls is out here working out occasionally. And you start saying, all right, is Jace Estes, is he hanging in there? Is this the makings of a Taylor Walls?
Okay.
Miles Bailey, the gigantic first baseman, I think he has some sort of comment about
the physicality I've never seen. I've had some really dynamic offensive players. I just haven't had somebody that's the size of Jared Verse running around at practice. I just don't want to get in the way of that.
Right. Yeah,
so
he's a big kid.
Yeah, and then Hunter Carnes, called him advanced and a worker. So much to digest from this, but this is a guy that doesn't. I think everything he says, there's intention, there's meaning, and there's like truth behind it. And the only thing that he paused on was this. Our concern was, can our dynamic left-handed bats, can those guys give you the quality of at-bat that develops the extra base hit to score runs in bunches? Which, like, all right, man, if that's our concern, I'm cool. Feel good.
But you do. But it is going to be a different team. Like, even if the freshmen are good, they're not going to be Cam Smith, James Tibbs, Ferrer good. Not as freshmen. I mean, those guys were all American candidates for a reason, and they were all 21 years old. 18, 19-year-old kids facing this kind of pitching consistently for the first time, it's going to be tough. You're not going to have the offensive season you had last year. But if you're better defensively, which they probably will be in the outfield, and the pitching is as good or better, probably better, honestly. It feels like it's going to be better. Pitching, they weren't incredible last year on the mound. They had good arms. They had good bullpen guys, but they didn't have a closer. Once they lost Leiter, they really kind of didn't have a Sunday guy ever. Nope. And they kind of had to mix and match Saturdays and Sundays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
And Carson Dorsey was possessed in the postseason.
Yeah, well, that helped a lot.
Oh.
So I feel like he likes the depth they have. He has built a really good program. He knew what he wanted, and he went and got it. It's just I think there are going to be some lumps early. Not maybe early because of the competition. Early on in ACC play. Offensively, you got Max Williams, who's a thunderous bat. Jackson West, I like him as a hitter. The two middle infielders, good players, solid, right?
Yeah,
solid.
yeah. Lodi's and Furrow, those are good players, man.
Not stars, but solid.
Yes,
for sure. I like some of that core there. It's just a matter of filling in the. I mean, those are big holes to fill, man. Dingus was great.
Yes.
I mean, you probably lost your four best hitters. Production-wise, just overall ability-wise, Max Williams is close. He's in there too. But those four guys were advanced. And Max Williams is going to have to – it's a different role for him, man. He's not going to sneak up on anyone. They're not going to be throwing him fastballs because they don't want to face Tibbs with runners on base. He'll probably be the three-hitter. And he's going to be pitched differently this year, so we'll see how he handles it early. But yeah, man, I like the makeup. I like what they have on the mound because Link likes what he has on the mound. And like you were saying, what's cool about Link is he told us 2 preseasons ago, yeah, man, we don't have a lot of depth at all.
Yep.
I've never had less depth in a bullpen than I have this year, and that absolutely played out.
He warned us. It was going to be rocky.
And it wasn't like coach speak, like I'm lowering expectations. He was absolutely telling us the truth, just like I think now he's absolutely telling us the truth. He likes the makeup of this team. They have some question marks, but overall he really, really seems to like what he has on the mound, and that's how you win a bunch of games, is have good pitching. Yeah. Offense comes and goes. It's streaky. You win consistently every weekend by having really good pitching, and they might have the best pitcher in the country. It's arms 2 through 8 that are going to make the biggest difference, and I think they like 2 through 8 a lot.
Yeah, I think Vellini. Sorry, I said Vellino earlier. Vellini, I think he's probably has the inside track. It sounds like to be the Saturday night guy behind Jamie Arnold. Jamie Arnold's an awesome kid too. Go listen to his interview. Ben Barrett's a guy he was asked about. Coach Jarrett called him.
Ben Barrett was throwing 98?
96 to 98 with a power sink.
Did he play at all last year, Ben Barrett?
I think he hurt? He was hurt most of last season, yeah. And then the first year that Link was here, he did everything. And he said the same thing on Tuesday. He was like, Ben will, whatever we need to do, whatever he can do to help the team, like we will use him in that aspect. So it sounds like maybe if he has to even get back in the batter's box, he will too. But if he's running 96, 98, I think he's going to probably be in the bullpen. But yeah, he's a big kid, man. He's like 6'2", 6'3", 230 or so. He's a big dude. They've got.
I just feel like a couple years ago he was throwing 91 or living in the low 90s or 89. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misremembering, but 96 to 98 is something completely different. So good for him.
Yeah, that was the problem last year when he was trying to come back from it, is that his velocity would drop off a cliff like after 2/3 of an inning or whatever. So he said that, it's all about him being able to replicate and repeat and bounce back, but everything so far looks pretty good. Wanted to mention, you talked about obviously losing, golly, when you really think about it, my gosh. Tibbs, Cam Smith, Ferrer, Dinges, Cantu.
Yeah.
Golly. But he did mention that it seems like he's so high on their pitching and their improved fielding. Like he really seems to like what they have in the outfield. And he talked about, he thinks they'll be a tough team to score on, and that could ultimately affect the way they'll approach things when they're in the box.
Yeah.
That's another thing to consider too. They are obviously losing all this production, but they might, to your point, Corey, like 2 through 8, if they're a tick above what they were last year, that cuts into that deficit of what you've lost offensively if you can get the kind of steady production out of those guys 2 through 8. And then football-wise, BJ Gibson has reported to duty. So I think he joined the team last week. He is part of the roster. When he was done with his interview, I asked him off camera. I'm just saying, is he the only guy that's a multi-sport guy you're going to have this year? And he said, yeah. So Deuce Robinson, who I don't think was even going to be eligible because whatever, the window for football coincides with baseball or whatever, so he wouldn't have been able to be eligible. Then Cam Smith, it doesn't sound like he's going to be part of the plans. But
Cam Davis, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Love you, Cam Smith.
Good to know about B.J. Gibson, though.
Yeah.
He was a pretty highly touted baseball prospect. It's hard to play that part-time. He's going to be competing with some really good guys, but certainly you feel like he could be a defensive replacement late in the games at the very least as he gets his feet wet, and a pinch runner that could swipe you a base or two.
Yeah. And I think it takes a level of stones, or how did you put it earlier when you were quoting the Ghetto Boys?
Some
nuts.
Yeah, flex nuts.
To go to the guy across the street that makes 10 times your salary and tell him, like, hey, listen, if your guys want to come play for me, that's cool and all, but they're going to have to be committed to playing for me. And like, they're going to have to focus on playing. And cool that Mike would go along with that as well. But it does sound like BJ is sold out to try to figure out a way to continue to play baseball, telling Link that like he loves football, yes, but he also loves baseball. So, it's one thing to be a high school recruit and they're telling you everything you want to hear. And we'll give you the opportunity, but shout out to Norvell for giving him that opportunity. And I guess, shout out to Link for having a standard that he that needs to be met to play in his program, and it sounds like BJ's up to it. So this will be exciting. I don't know. Somebody was pushing back on the boards about it's not as tough as we try to make it out to be. Everyone brings up Dion, but there's been plenty more people that have played both baseball and football. Obviously, James is here, but across the country, and I don't remember. Kyler Murray was doing it not too long ago, but when you think about him reporting to the team right now, Corey, they're still doing tour of duty.
Yeah.
So he's doing tour of duty, waking up at 5 a.m., doing all the crazy stuff that's made and geared and programmed to make you vomit all over yourself. And then a few hours after that, he's going and playing baseball. And their practices are pretty long, Corey. So
and it's to say it's not tough. Yeah, it's not tough to be on both teams. It's tough to make an impact on both. Or one even. And look, when spring practice comes, I assume B.J. Gibson will be going to football spring practice. Yeah. And then also being a baseball player for one of the better teams in the country, we think. Like, that's not easy. That's not, again, it might be, it's not, when you're 20 years old, it's not the hardest thing on the body necessarily to go stand at a baseball field and get your cuts in and go run. But, yeah, man, baseball's hard as hell. Hitting college pitching now is harder than it's ever been. And so being a full-time college like Dion, I can't imagine how many guys he faced that were thrown in the 90s when he played at Florida State. One a weekend maybe. Well, now you might face one a weekend that doesn't. And I'm talking about even when Lemoyne's in here or Rhode Island comes. It's 90 everywhere. So yeah, it's hard to be an impact player at both just because it takes a lot to be good at baseball, just like it takes a lot mentally and physically to be good at football. So I hope he can do it. I hope he finds one that he can excel at, because he's definitely not doing both in the majors. We can say, who's done it since? It's Bo and Dion, right? That played Major League Baseball in the NFL, Brian Jordan. Isn't it crazy? Like, that did happen a good bit. Like, Brian Jordan just got completely overshadowed.
Yeah.
My man was an all-pro safety for the Falcons, and then also became a borderline all-star in Major League Baseball. Nobody ever talks about him because he came right on the heel, or in the midst of Dion, and right on the heels of Bo Jackson. And then nobody's done it since. Tebow? He get to Double-A? You know what I'm saying? It's crazy the world I used to you lived in it too. You were younger than me.
I was here.
But like Bo and Dion are maybe the two best athletes that have ever lived, at least in the last half century. And they both were they were simultaneous. Yeah. So Bo got more respect than Dion because Bo was he was as fast as Dion literally and 30, 40 pounds heavier. But it's crazy those two guys lived in that era at the same time. And then we haven't seen anything since. Maybe Shohei will play quarterback for the Rams in a couple years. But it's just incredible that happened back then, and then it has not happened since.
Hey,
Charlie Ward won a Heisman and was a point guard in the NBA.
Yeah.
This stuff just doesn't happen anymore.
I was about to say, to a lesser degree, Keon Coleman. I think he played for Tom Izzo for a week or so.
Yeah, that's right. I think he might have been on that team the whole year, but he didn't play much. But, yeah, it's hard, man. Marquez White, remember him?
Yeah, man. Dolphin stand-up. Let's go, Northview High.
He played for Leonard 1 year, at least for a part of a year. He played in an ACC tournament game, I think. Yeah, man, it's. I hope BJ finds happiness doing both, and then eventually figures out what he's best at and what he has a real future in. And I guess for our purposes, I hope he's an all-pro wide receiver. That would be awesome to watch. But if he's a major league outfielder, that would be cool too. I assume he's an outfielder.
Yes, he is.
Because of the speed. Okay, yeah, all right.
What if MJ Walker would have been a tight end?
I think he was a running back in college, wasn't he? Or in high school. I think he was a running back. Luke Laux was a quarterback. A pretty good one, like a recruitable quarterback. And then ended up being a pretty good point guard. Is now a coach with the Kings. And who knows? Maybe you're coach of your Seminoles in a few years or something. Who knows? Who knows where his journey will go?
Do we have a game tonight?
Yeah. Yep. They play Virginia Tech Wednesday night tonight. So tonight at 7 p.m. at the Tuck. Okay. So big one. If they lose that game, cash it in. It's over. Virginia Tech's not good. They have a losing record overall, losing record in the ACC. It's a home game. You need to beat them, and then you need to go win Saturday. I think they play at Boston College on Saturday. They've got to beat the bad teams.
I gotcha. We will not be doing a show tomorrow. But we'll be back for Friday because on Thursday, we're going to be speaking with a quartet of newcomers. Diamante Diggs, defensive end, who's coming to us from Coastal Carolina. Elijah Herring, linebacker, Tennessee, then most recently Memphis. Stephon Thompson, who was at Syracuse, and most recently Nebraska. And then James Williams. All
right, so there's 4 guys? Yeah. 4 on Thursday? All right, okay. All right, good.
The real, I don't want to call him the wild card or the X factor, but like the sky-high ceiling, the really intriguing prospect, the most intriguing prospect, at least on the defensive side of the ball. So we'll be back Friday to talk about all that stuff. Jeff Cameron Show in the meantime, 1 to 4 o'clock, warchant.com, all hours, all days. Subscribe, everybody. Get involved in that community. Get in some of those threads. Push back on narratives. Create your own. And then maybe it'll make its way onto this show, and then we'll subscribe to it ourselves. Hit the thumbs up on the way out. He's Corey Maslon. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy.